What's up, guys? Welcome to week number 24 of my 2018 training. Overall, this was a relatively positive training week. Was able to get good workouts in for both upper and lower body, so that's always a good week. Corrective work is still chugging right along, and everything is feeling good, and my body weight is hanging out right around 230 still. So staying anywhere between 230 and like 233, 4, 5-ish, depending on the day, without necessarily trying to restrict calories or anything. I am still obviously tracking everything that I'm doing, but I've added about 200-ish calories. So my daily average has come up and my body weight has stayed the same, so that is good. I'm still continuing to lean out every week, and I can see changes from week to week, even though I've been adding calories. I got some of my blood work back from the doctor, and my thyroid has actually slowed down a little bit. That's most likely from the semi-aggressive cut that I've been on, so I'm expecting that as that heals, when I add calories in, I should be able to continue leaning out and see if I can get my metabolism up and rolling again. So main strategies for that are start bringing in some carbs. I've upped my breakfast carbs for most of the days. I was doing just a half a cup of rice in with my eggs. I bumped that up to a whole cup. Added a little bit of fat to dinner time, and then nudged up my protein just a tiny bit too. So it ends up being about 200-ish calories up, but I'm also doing the conditioning on the Airdyne bike on those off days. So what I'll probably end up doing is dropping back some of the conditioning that I was doing on the upper body days and skipping that. I'll still do some sled work here and there on the 2 lower days, but my toe's been a little bit fucked up still, so as my toe heals, I'll probably still keep that in based on how I feel, and then I will keep the Airdyne sprints in on the other 2 days, so that way I'm continuing to hopefully put on a little bit of size and not start just adding body fat back on as I add calories. So that brings us to the accessories here from the max effort day. Ended up going up to 350 for a single on the reverse band bench. We just did a reverse light mini band, or just a reverse mini band, just to take a little bit of pressure off since my shoulders have been feeling good. Wanted to take something full range of motion and mostly raw while still just taking a little bit of pressure off. So included a couple of the accessories that I've been doing. I've really been liking the feel of pullovers on the heavy bench day, so those are going to stay in rotation for a couple weeks, and then I'll probably swap them out for something else. But those have been feeling really good to get my chest and my lats, my T-spine all kind of opened up. So that brings us to the max effort lower day on Monday here. Decided to work some pause deadlifts on the stiff bar. Main reason being that the stiff bar forces me to slow down my technique, and the pause, as you can see how I kind of pause just barely off of the floor, that helps reinforce just initiating the lift correctly with the legs rather than with my upper body. So looking back on a couple of my pulls from the last few weeks, I've gotten back into the habit of trying to like half jerk the bar. So the goal here was to play around with belt position, which we'll talk about in a second, and then also just reinforce proper cueing order for starting the lift. So that went more or less successfully. Went up to 500 for the top single, and that moved relatively well. Felt pretty balanced between the 2 sides. So another thing that I messed around with is my belt placement. I had moved the belt up higher as I got fatter and heavier because it allowed me to get into a decent position still. I was kind of curious because I dropped the belt down and was able to get a significantly better brace, which is not really news. Obviously, I figured putting it down here would give me a little bit more tightness. But now that my waist is so much smaller, there's actually room for the belt down around the belly button again. So I was still able to get into a similar position with it in the lower placing. Still some work to do there, but I think that will be a change that I keep going forward, just because I can get locked in and brace so much better. And my hip centration, not really the word I wanted to use, but hip centration and how everything fires tends to be so highly dependent on the quality of that brace that I think the lower belt position should help reinforce that and keep things balanced between both sides. So we will see, but that is kind of what I'm thinking. After those top pulls, decided to just work on some heavier belt squats today since I didn't get under a squat bar. Basically did quarter plate jumps in sets of 5 all the way up from a plate to 500 for 5. So it ended up being a good deal of volume on the belt squat. Everything here also felt very stable and balanced between both legs. I did have a funky rep, I think it was the 4th rep of this set here with 500, where I ended up shoving forward into the knees just a little bit and got a little bit of a zinger in my left quad, down around the knee, kind of on the VMO. By the time that I've recorded this, which is maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks after this workout, it's mostly better. There's still a little bit in there, but I've been pretty much taking care of that with the ex-wife. So a little bit of body tempering, and then just remembering to focus on my obliques when I'm bracing pretty much squares everything up. So I haven't had to skip any squatting or anything like that. It hasn't really interfered with any training. I don't have any pain during any particular movements. It just feels a little bit tight. I think I just probably pissed off the muscle a little bit. So brings us to the speed upper day. For this next 3-week wave, I'll be using the bench block. So it's set to, I think, like a 1 board, so it's taking like the last inch and a half out of the bottom of the press. All of these moved really well. I was able to use a close, medium, and wide grip and had good stability and strength in all 3 of the grips, as well as minimal amounts of pain. So took that for a win. Was able to nudge the dumbbell floor presses up to this top set of 10 with the 125s. I clipped it out of this video, but the bigger pain in the ass with these is actually getting into position, because apparently after 115-ish range, being able to pick them up onto your lap while you're sitting on the ground is kind of a bitch. So hopefully next week I have a person there, or I might have to come up with a little bit different strategy for how to get into position, because I literally took longer trying to get the things up onto my legs so I could actually lay back with them than it took to actually do this set. So took sets of 10 at, I want to say 85, 100, and 125, and then dropped it down to the 100s here and did a set of 15, just to kind of fill in the volume, because I didn't feel like trying to fight with the 125s again or try and go up, although I feel like I probably could have gotten at least a set of 8 with maybe like the 135s, or maybe 6-ish with 150. So I'll kind of play those by ear. I think by the time I get closer to using the 150s, I might move into the max effort day as a secondary press. That way I'm not pressing too heavily twice in the week, and I'm just keeping all the stress consolidated to that Saturday workout. So on the dynamic lower day, I'm doing some raw box squats here. These are moving better than the last week. I was shifting a little bit away from that knee, so these first couple of sets were not necessarily the greatest. I didn't have any major shifting, and the bar's not dumping or anything like that, but even though I had no pain, I was pushing into the other side just a little bit, and that actually cleared up over the course of doing the set. So did 10 doubles with 145 and 120 and change. Kept the same weight. I'm probably going to keep the same weight again next week, then just get my groove back with my raw squat before making any changes. I still supersetted all of these with sets of 10 on the double kettlebell swings, which makes the dynamic work significantly more challenging from a conditioning perspective, but it adds a nice element, which I actually think for me helps get the glutes firing really well. The first couple sets with the kettlebells don't necessarily feel good, but then after probably maybe the 3rd set, I actually feel my hips firing through on the squats much better because of it. I think there's something to be said for having a kettlebell in each hand, because I noticed that it does force me to also lock in the lats and shoulders, and I can make the swing itself feel very tight, compact, and explosive if I focus on settling in the shoulder blades and the scapulas in addition to firing the hips through. And that's something that at least until this point has been unique to just the double kettlebell variation. So I may, for the next wave, move the swings to being between my legs instead of on the sides, just to kind of compare and see if I can replicate that same feeling. because the sensation that I was able to get on the swings feels like it will definitely carry over to my squats and pulls really well. So I'll keep playing with that. I keep forgetting to film some of the swings so you can see what I'm talking about. This is already past the other dynamic. I forgot it again. So next week I will try to remember to do that. That way I can show you what I'm talking about. Afterwards, took the concentric good mornings up to this top set of 405 for 5. I did 5s in plate quarter jump, so I ended up going on like 135, 85, 225, 75, 315, 355-ish, and then this set all for 5s. So I think this will run one more week. I'll see what's there next week, and then after that I will switch to another good morning variation for the dynamic day. So that is it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like it, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you next week.